नमस्कार। आज से मैं ट्राई कर रहा हूँ एक वाइडर एंगल को लेने का इन माय वीडियोस सो दैट यू कैन सी माय हैंड मूवमेंट्स अ लिटिल बिट एंड it is not in my face as it was used to be. So, coming to the today's video, I have this discussion between Kushal Mehra and Prakhar. I haven't reacted to any videos of Kushal before, but I have reacted to one podcast clip of Prakhar. It was with Sanjeev Sanyal. I will give a link to that video in the iCard. Anyway, this discussion is about one of our favorite topics on this channel, that is J Sai Deepak and his book. Based on the title, I haven't seen the video yet. So let's jump into the video without wasting any time. I'll give link to this video in the description. I will give link to all my socials in the pinned comment. Well, those are just two Instagram accounts. Anyway, so I'll give link to those and let's start.
ये लोग क्या कह रहे हैं मालूम है? ट्रैड्स, हर टेक्स्ट, हर सेक्ट का अपना सिविल कोड रखो, यानी कि भारत में हजारों यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड रखो।
हाँ, तो यूनिफॉर्म तो वर्ड ही ड्रॉप कर दो ना, फिर यूनिफॉर्म नहीं है ना, फिर
हाँ,
कुछ भी। हाँ,
सिविल कोड्स रखो, बेसिकली हजारों सिविल कोड्स रखो, हजारों। ये है इनका विजन ऑफ इंडिया। देयर इज नो इंडिविजुअल in their vision. There is only and only group.
Well, this seems like something which started right in the middle, but जितना मैंने सुना है इनके पॉडकास्ट वगैरह को, उसके हिसाब से मैं आपको I would like to tell you what triad means here. I could be wrong, okay? I am not sure about this. If I'm wrong, please correct me. Triads are basically, according to them, are those people who want the complete Hindu resurgence in our country all over again. Like फिर से वर्ना सिस्टम वगैरह आने लगे, फिर से वही feudal system चलने लगे, those kind of things. I'm not sure, I could be wrong, but okay, let's march forward with this assumption.
सिर्फ और सिर्फ ग्रुप है, सिर्फ और सिर्फ ग्रुप है। अब मेरे को एक बात बता, तू ऐसी विजन में, भाई तुमको रहना है तुम रहो, मैं नहीं रहता ऐसी विजन में।
हमारे लिए for people who exist on the edge of religion, it will be very difficult because आप neither Shaivite
नहीं, मैं तो रहूंगा ही नहीं, मैं तो छोड़ दूंगा। जिस दिन इंडिया ऐसा बन गया, मैं तो इंडिया छोड़ दूंगा। मैं तो खुला बोल रहा हूँ, मैं इंडिया छोड़ दूंगा। इट विल नॉट बी अ कंट्री वर्थ लिविंग वेयर individual rights are going to be trampled over because we want to change the locus from the individual to the group. अब आप बोलोगे कि ये तो हो ही नहीं सकता है, कि तो फिर मैं इंडिया डेट इज भारत में रीड।
हाँ, मैं बोलूँगा it is already very difficult to bring one civil code. People are not ready to give up their beliefs. Those who don't know what a civil code is, let me give you a quick course on this based on my understanding. I'm not an expert anyway. So based on my understanding, it is there are two set of rules in any, let's say, society. One is the criminal set of code and one is the civil set of codes. Now in criminal code में क्या होगा कि होता है already कि there are uniform rules across the board, across the religion, across sects. तो let's say I commit a murder, मुझे भी वही सज़ा मिलेगी जो under the same circumstances जो किसी let's say किसी मुस्लिम को या किसी क्रिश्चियन को या किसी जैन, any person belonging to any sect or religion will get the same punishment under the criminal code of law. So the criminal code of law is already uniform and is applicable to everyone as it is. Now when it comes to civil laws are those laws जिसमें हम society कैसे run करेगी, like a family, how will a family run, how will the day-to-day dynamics interaction will be, like कैसे शादी होगी, शादी के बाद लड़की के क्या rights होंगे, property के क्या rights होंगे, inheritance क्या rights होंगे, वो सारी चीज़ें define होंगी। तो हमारी country में there are personal laws based on the religion. There are Hindu personal laws, there are Muslim personal laws. Now, according to the uniform civil code, what will happen? A set of rules will come जो सब पे uniformly apply होंगे, whether it may be a Hindu, Muslim or anybody like that. So That is the definition of a uniform civil code. Now, let's see what they're talking about.
रीड करना चाहता हूं, जय साई दीपक की बुक है. Quote, fifth, and I expect to raise quite a few hackles with this point, in a civilization state, the core unit is not the individual, instead it is the group, rather groups. I repeat, this is the line of his book. The core unit is not the individual, instead it is the group, rather groups. आगे भी पढ़ते हैं. The logic behind this position is that a European style nation state is built on the premise of a nation, that is, people bound by one or more factors such as language, faith, or ethnicity. Given the internal homogeneity of a European nation state, it makes sense and is perhaps more desirable to treat the individual as the core unit whose rights must be safeguarded against intrusion by the state and other individuals. However, in a civilization state, every group is rightly interested in protecting its own identity from encroachment by other groups as well as by the state. Such being the case, to claim on the one hand that Bharat is a civilization state and to argue on the other that individual rights must remain supreme in a civilization state are logically, historically, and constitutionally incongruent assertions whose impracticality, coloniality, and naivete are writ large on the face of it. Only a mind thoroughly dyed in Eurocentric Western naivete are writ large on the face of it. Only a mind thoroughly dyed in Eurocentric Western normative ideas on individual rights, while paying lip service to Bharat being a civilization state, is capable of missing the whole point of a civilization state by light years by treating the individual as the core of a civilizational society. I must clarify that I do not mean for a moment that the individual has no rights in a civilization state, or that in all circumstances and every conceivable situation the individual's right must give way to group interests. However, it is certainly my case that where the individual's whim is couched at his right and has an effect of adversely affecting the interests of a group or the interests of other groups or the civilizational interests, the individual's right must necessarily be traded off against the greater good. अब मैं इसमें बताता हूं ये केस कैसे होगा. ठीक है, मुस्लिम औरत एज एन इंडिविजुअल बोलेगी मुझे मेरे राइट्स दो.
ये तलाक 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 वाला हटाओ.
मुस्लिम्स,
हाँ.
मुस्लिम्स एज अ ग्रुप बोलेंगे दिस इज एनक्रोचमेंट.
राइट राइट. इंडिविजुअल ग्रुप
जीएसडी का लॉजिक यूज कर रहा हूं.
हाँ, इंडिविजुअल वर्सेस ग्रुप इंक्रोचमेंट इज बिकॉज आई थिंक ही लिटरली सेज ना कि ग्रुप इंक्रोचमेंट और स्टेट इंक्रोचमेंट से ग्रुप्स की सिविलाइजेशनल प्रॉपर्टीज वी कैन डिफेंड थ्रू ट्रीटिंग ग्रुप्स एज
I
यूनिट्स.
supported J Sai Deepak. I supported J Sai Deepak in the Shabrimala case, and I still do.
Well, I don't think that is the logic based on what he quoted. क्योंकि it's not about the majoritarianism कि let's say एक बंदा कुछ बोल रहा है उसके against पूरा group कुछ बोल रहा है तो then you will listen to that group because they are larger in number and they are trying to preserve their culture or whatever their traditions. The point here is that individual rights cannot be given priority over the rights of a group or let's say the society at large. That is the point. So who will decide this? It's not like you will have to listen to the people as to what they want. What is the greater good according to their opinion. You have to argue on it. You have to deliberate on it in a court of law. Now, just like it is being done these days.
And I will always do. He was right. He was right. Where he is right, he is right. He's wrong here. And if
for those who don't know what was the position of J Sai Deepak in Sabrimala case or what the Sabrimala case was in the first place, again a quick course. Sabrimala is like a temple in the south of India where a case was raised that women are not allowed to enter the temple, and the case was deliberated in the Supreme Court. And I wouldn't delve a lot into it, but J Sai Deepak का वहाँ पे ये position था कि nobody is representing the interests of the deity. Now there were two sides in that case. One was the women's side who were arguing that we should be allowed to enter inside the Sabrimala temple. The other was the temple association or organization who was saying that ये हमारे traditions हैं and we want to preserve it. J Sai Deepak was the third party who was approached by certain groups as well. जो रिप्रेजेंट कर रहे थे एक deity के interests, because a deity can be treated as an entity in a case itself. So according to that, let's say there's a Bajrang Bali temple and Bajrang Bali is a celibate, so they wouldn't allow women to enter inside the temple, or even let's say touch the idol of Bajrang Bali. Now if women started raising voices against this tradition, so one would have to represent the interest of Bajrang Bali himself, कि जो God है, he has certain ideas, certain preferences, and we have to respect that. So that is not between a temple or the women, it is between the God himself is a party in that case. So that is the level of what do we call it, litigation that we have reached in this country, के भगवान को भी अपना केस लड़ना पड़ रहा है through a lawyer.
Speaking for individual rights over group rights is coloniality, then sir, I am colonized.
But I see the rhetoric there. For a better understanding, मेरा question it still boils down to the same कि ठीक है आप colonized हो वो कोई बात नहीं है, but why is one morally better than the other को clearly समझने का तरीका क्या है? Like I don't care if I'm Eurocentric as long as my life is good and happy and I have kids and family to enjoy. हाँ.
Tell me who gives a shit whether something is Eurocentric or Indian? The only criteria by which you should measure the efficacy of an idea is, does it lead to the highest amount of human flourishing?
Agreed.
That's all you should care for.
Agreed.
If it is from the West, so be it. If it is from the Arab world, so be it. If it is from the East, so be it. How does it matter? How does it matter? Only parochial people who think their ancestors had all the answers make such arguments. That, oh, this is Eurocentric, this is colonial. What you the state's job is ensuring the flourishing of its citizenry by most of the time staying out of their life, which is why I agree with JSD on most occasions. I am a libertarian. The state should get out of my life. But suppression of women is not human flourishing.
थोड़ा गलत ले लिया इस चीज़ को. If you read the entire book and you take the entire discussion into context, तब you can understand the depth of this argument, which they have like ऊपर से ले लिया उन्होंने और they have twisted it something completely different. Here he is claiming that this whole argument comes from a position of, let's say, perceived superiority, कि हमारे ancestors को सब पता था, that's why we want to bring in all that again in our society, और हम वही सब करना चाहते हैं जो वो सब करते थे, और हम we will reject everything that has come out of this Indian subcontinent. But you have to take into context कि जो सब बाहर से आया है वो किस intention के साथ आया था. For example, when the Christian conversion process was going on inside the Indian subcontinent, their perception was कि हमें इनके souls को सही करना है, right? हमें let me give you an example. Slavery was justified by Christianity because slaves were the pagan people. Now pagan people have a soul. They are human. इतना तो दिख रहा है. But their soul is not worthy just because they do not follow Abrahamic religion. तो जो उनके साथ cruelty हुई थी, it was being justified inside the Christian mind because they thought कि we are saving them by converting them into Christianity. तो जो cruelty है हम इसलिए कर रहे हैं because ultimately this cruelty will result in their conversion and they will be saved from hell. Now their conversion, their ideas came from the same place of entitlement कि हमारे ancestors को सब पता था, और इसी वजह से हम जो follow कर रहे हैं that is completely correct, and we will also convert the entire world in the same way. Now imagine that had succeeded completely in India and we were following all the rules that were being supported by the Christians or let's say other Abrahamic religions, then we wouldn't get the chance to explore our side of things. जो हमारा इंटेलेक्चुअल बेस है, जो हमारा ट्रेडिशनल बेस है, वो हमें किस रास्ते पे ले जा सकता था, वो तो हमने एक्सप्लोर कर ही नहीं पाते ना। तो you are countering the same kind of thought when you try to revive this cultural identity, civilizational identity. I don't know if I was able to articulate what I was thinking in a very meaningful or understandable manner, but I hope you got what I'm trying to say.
That is not human flourishing. So either he comes out and clarifies his stand. I quoted his book. Did I make shit up? No. I quoted his book. I'm one of the rare ones who's actually read his book. Not once, but 4 times. I read it very carefully. I took copious notes of his book.
Because you wanted
I like
eventually
him.
to agree or disagree publicly about it.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. I like him. I don't dislike him. I like him. But I disagree with this idea vehemently. And I don't care if tomorrow this idea wins. मुझे क्या लेना देना है यार? मैं तो इंडिया छोड़ के चल जाऊंगा. गू खाए ये आइडिया, गू खाए ऐसे आइडियाज. बनाओ तुम अपने देश को हेल होल, जिसमें ग्रुप्स एक दूसरे से जॉसल करते रहेंगे. बनो टट्टी तुम, सानू की. जब तक लड़ सकता हूं लड़ूंगा. जब तक ये बैटल ऑफ आइडियाज लड़ सकता हूं लड़ूंगा.
जाओगे कहाँ?
जिस दिन मुझे लगा जाऊंगा नॉर्थ अमेरिका वेस्ट में, जहां पे इंडिविजुअलिज्म की वैल्यू है.
राइट.
क्यों नहीं जाऊंगा? मैं तो बोल रहा हूं यहाँ पे इंडिविजुअल.
प्लीज, वहाँ पे ग्रुपिज्म नहीं होता क्या? Are people, it is in basic human nature to form groups. We are a social animal. तो हम अपनी आइडेंटिटी को प्रिजर्व करना चाहेंगे because then it gives our life a meaning. ऐसे थोड़ी, even if you go to West, you will see that people are living in their communities. There are social communities. Indians are living with Indians. Caucasians are living in Caucasian areas. Black people have black neighborhoods. So they also have this kind of social idea. Now, there is a distinction to be made. Now, what does the state discriminate people based on the community that they are belonging to? That is something that we can debate. But this idea कि हम ग्रुप में नहीं रहेंगे, हम इंडिविजुअल राइट्स वाले लोग हैं, तो but that cannot come क्योंकि people are bound to live in a society. People are a social animal. Now the state should uphold individual liberties, but that is again another debate, because let's say I have a place, I have a home, and लोगों के public good के लिए वहाँ से सड़क जाने वाली है. तो will the state uphold my individual right to have my property there, or will it look at the larger picture and for the greater good they will remove my house from that place so that a road can be built? So those are questions that need answering, and it happens in current society, which is supposedly individual centric.
की वैल्यू है. यहाँ आऊंगा
भाई, एक प्रोटो फॉर्म में ना, अगर मैं इसके एकेडमिक कपड़े उतार दूं, ठीक है, और इसको डीकोलोनियलिटी और ग्रुप आइडेंटिटी और इंडिविजुअल राइट से दूर ले जाऊं और एक बहुत ही प्रोटो फॉर्म में ले जाऊं ना, यही रीज़न होता है जो बच्चे अमेरिका आते हैं ना अपने घर वालों से लड़ाई करके. मेरे जैसे बच्चे वो इसीलिए आते हैं क्योंकि वहाँ पे द फैमिली वांट्स टू इन्फोर्स अ ग्रुप आइडेंटिटी. बच्चा पापा के काम ही करेगा. मेरे पापा की दुकान है, दुकान पे जाके बैठो. बच्चे कहते हैं नहीं, इंडिविजुअल राइट्स, मैं पढ़ने जाऊंगा, मैं कुछ और करूंगा, मैं अपनी नौकरी करूंगा. द प्रोटो वर्जन ऑफ दिस इज एग्जैक्टली दिस ना. ऑन, यू मे नॉट से सिविलाइजेशनल ग्राउंड्स पे ग्रुप आइडेंटिटी, familial grounds पे group identity. And the young male, young female, young adult feels the pressure of that group identity in correspondence with their individual desires to explore and be free, and therefore decides I'm going to part ways. And every time there's a group identity question posed, I think one of the better sort of rhetorical responses, I'm not sure, I'm not part of this debate, is, are you living with your family? Are you listening to everything that your father says? Because you disagreed on a group identity level at the level of family, but there were only 4 people involved. Now, if I make this 4 million people, how are you going to ensure homogeneity in group identity? Because it's going to be super
नहीं हो
difficult.
सकता.
हाँ.
It is a non-governable nightmare, which is why the idea of running and governing societies with the individual being the locus was a far superior one. These people were smart. They realized.
They went through their conflict and they
like,
came out
नहीं
with
हो
an
सकता.
answer.
Yes, they're like, सबको इंडिविजुअल के जैसे ट्रीट करो तभी हम गवर्न कर पाएंगे. हम नहीं कर सकते. अगेन मैं रिपीट कर रहा हूं, शबरीमला में आई एम विथ द कम्युनिटी, विथ देम. The courts had no business in telling what is rational, what is irrational. Courts का काम है ये. The tradition was very clearly that of a Naistika Brahmachari. Of a Naistika Brahmachari that stays away from women that are menstruating. So, menstruating women were requested, please don't come, because the faith says there are certain physiological effects on your body that might happen. Abhi, a person like me, I'm like, is that claim real? No. But they have every right to have their belief and have that temple. They have every right to have that belief and that temple. Nahi to who the hell are you to tell me about a god then? क्या गॉड का बिलीफ मेरे हिसाब से तो रैशनल बिलीफ नहीं है. मगर कल को क्या कोर्ट्स ये भी करेंगी? इसके लिए मैं बोल रहा हूँ 100% विद जेएसडी ऑन सबरीमला अभी भी.
So you see the lopsided analysis of this whole situation, because on one hand he is with JSD on Sabrimala issue, which is a specific issue and is community centric, but on the other hand he is against JSD because it is a generalized way of holding community above individuals. So that is lopsided, because when it comes to specific issues, in the, let's say, in the case where individual liberty is not being upheld, which would some would argue in the Sabrimala case, तो उस केस में तो कम्युनिटी के इंटरेस्ट को तुम हायर रख रहे हो as opposed to the individual liberties, and then you are supporting it. So that is the lopsided analysis of it, क्योंकि ऐसे generalized way में you cannot agree or disagree. You have to look at case by case basis. That's why it has to be deliberated in courts, क्योंकि तभी तो case by case पे देखा जाएगा. You cannot have one generalized way of looking at things.
PB. On temple freedom, I only give a caveat. I am with JSD on temple freedom also. But मेरा only caveat is freedom has to be two ways. Freedom from the government control and freedom to stay in government. If a temple is छोटा, उनकी हुंडी की कलेक्शन इतनी नहीं है, they should have the right to stay under government control and let be governed by the government laws. If a temple is big enough, that says no, government की जरूरत नहीं है, हमें अकेला छोड़ दो, they should be left alone. इसमें भी जेएसडी के साथ हूं. एक चीज में जेएसडी के साथ कभी नहीं होऊंगा, वो है डीकोलोनियलिटी एट एन एपिस्टेमिक लेवल, और ये ग्रुप राइट्स फोकस ओवर इंडिविजुअल राइट्स कभी नहीं होगा. और यहां पे हमारे हमेशा द्वंद्व रहेगा. और अगर भारतवर्ष जो उसने ये किताब में लिखा है बन गया, तो मेरा हर यंग बच्चे को एक ही एडवाइस होगी, भाई निकल जाना देश. होगा नहीं वो अलग बात है, कभी होगा नहीं, क्योंकि भारत कभी ऐसी गलती नहीं करेगा.
आई नो आप कहाँ जा रहे हो,
गलती नहीं करेगा.
मेरे को पता है क्या लगता है इसमें, एक इनबिल्ट फैक्टर ये भी है कि मैं सिविलाइजेशन को इन द मॉडर्न, आई वांट टू फ्रीज इट इन द मॉडर्न फ्रेम एज सिविलाइजेशंस अंडरस्टूड टुडे, बिकॉज इट्स नॉट लाइक दीज थिंग्स हैवंट अंडरगॉन अ सर्टेन चेंज एज टाइम हैज गॉन ऑन. तो मैं अगर आज सिविलाइजेशन प्रेजर्वेशन करने के लिए भारत को एक सिविलाइजेशनल स्टेट बनाता हूँ और उसके तहत ग्रुप आइडेंटिटीज को राइट्स देता हूँ टू प्रिजर्व देमसेल्व्स, व्हाट you've done is you've frozen what civilization means in 2023 of a tradition that has been extending for tens of thousands of years at this point. And you said this is worth preserving, and therefore the group must be allowed this superpower or this super sort of right to not be encroached by individuals, groups, and state. And I'm not sure if even that is a perfect idea. Maybe I misunderstand. I probably need to read and sort of understand where decoloniality in this context comes from. But that's sort of a view I have.
No.
Prakhar, I think, is like the best person who can hold this kind of podcast. क्योंकि और भी पॉडकास्ट मैंने सुने हैं, बियर बाइसेप्स का सुना है एंड दोस्त कास्ट का सुना है, और भी सुने हैं, बट द काइंड ऑफ इनपुट प्रखर हैज़ और द काइंड ऑफ अंडरस्टैंडिंग प्रखर हैज़ is missing from those other podcasts. The depth of the discussion is not very much, and we are just discussing upper surface level ka stuff in other podcasts. Maybe that is because they want to keep the conversation guest centric. अपने ओपिनियंस और अपनी पोजीशंस को उसमें नहीं इंसर्ट करना चाहते. Maybe that is because of it. I don't know, but
So this is the problem, right? The Homo sapien is 300,000-year-old current evidence, right?
Right, 300,000.
So what is civilization? Post-agriculture is when you get civilization. Pre-agriculture was not civilization. And was the human being worshipping the same way 15,000 years ago that they are today? Does everything, there were no Western forces, there were no Abrahamic forces आज से 2000 साल पहले, 2000 साल पहले. Are you telling me, एक तरफ आप कहते हो आपका तो त्रेता युग पता नहीं कौन से युग है, वो सब छोड़ दो. उस अगर आप कहते हो 20,000 साल पुरानी है पद्धति आपकी, तो उसमें क्रिश्चियनिटी और इस्लाम तो 2000 साल हो गए, जुडाइज्म और 1000, 3000, 4000 साल. मगर उसके पहले फिर भी आपके पास एक बहुत बथेरा चंक है ना 6-7 हजार साल का, आपके हिसाब से भी, कंजर्वेटिव एस्टिमेट्स के हिसाब से. क्या आप मुझे कॉन्फिडेंटली कह सकते हो कि आपकी वो सारी प्रैक्टिसेस सेम है? क्या वो चेंज नहीं हुई है? तो अगर वो चेंज हुई तो किसने चेंज की? क्या कोई बाहर का हाथ था उसमें? कुछ नहीं था ना. तो ये जो हमारे बुजुर्ग कहते हैं कि परिवर्तन ही संसार का नियम है, तो परिवर्तन सच में संसार का नियम.
हाँ, बट वो परिवर्तन आ कहाँ से रहा है ये भी तो देखना पड़ेगा ना. अगर परिवर्तन हमें कोई बंदूक दिखा के अपने जोर पे अपने हिसाब से करा रहा है तो वो हम एक्सेप्ट नहीं कर सकते ना. तो परिवर्तन देख के करना होगा. परिवर्तन एज अ नेचुरल प्रोसेस, इफ इट कम्स then it should be acceptable. But it shouldn't be by force. It shouldn't be from outside malignant forces.
परिवर्तन हमेशा से होता आया है. कुछ प्रैक्टिसेस सरवाइव करती हैं, कुछ नहीं करती हैं, कुछ आज कर रही हैं 200 साल बाद ना करेंगी. आप जो चीज़ों से अटैच हो जाते हो, अभी जैसे कई बार मुझे भी होता है, मैं बोलता हूँ यार पहले कितनी अच्छी भाषा बोलते थे लोग, अभी नहीं बोलते. मगर वो अगर भाषा मर भी गई, एक सरसरी तौर पे मैं तेरे से बात कर रहा हूँ, तो क्या हम एक दूसरे से कम्युनिकेट करना बंद कर देंगे? नहीं ना. क्या तू और मैं आज वैदिक टाइम्स के जैसे लोग के जैसे बात कर रहे हैं?
संस्कृत प्रकृत में.
हाँ नहीं कर रहे ना.
नहीं, डेरिवेटिव लैंग्वेजेस हैं.
हाँ तो कर रहे हैं ना.
हाँ,
इसका मतलब नहीं है कि जो मर गया उसको मरने दो. जिसको जो करना है करने दो, जिसको जो करना है करने दो, सब्जेक्ट टू वायलेशन ऑफ इंडिविजुअल राइट्स. मैं बस इतना कहता हूं. इसमें अगर स्टेट आके बोलती है दही हंडी का 20 फुट ही हाइट होना चाहिए, नहीं, वहां पे अगेन मैं जे साई दीपक के साथ खड़ा हूंगा और लड़ाई करूंगा. अगर वो आके बोलेगी गणपति की मूर्ति की हाइट 5 फीट होनी चाहिए, तो मैं आके लड़ूंगा. मगर अगर स्टेट आके बोलेगी नहीं पोल्यूशन हो रही है, थोड़ा यार प्लास्टर ऑफ पेरिस कम करो, वहां पे मेरे को सोचने पे मजबूर करना पड़ेगा. क्यों? क्योंकि हार्म हो रहे हैं, हमारी एनवायरनमेंट हार्म हो रही है. तो ये छोटी छोटी चीजें होती हैं.
हाँ तो लास्ट में वही बात आ गई ना. आई व्हाट आई सेड इन द बिगिनिंग कि यू हैव टू लुक एट इट केस बाय केस बेसिस व्हाइल प्रिजर्विंग योर आइडेंटिटी. ऐसे नहीं कर सकते कि यू जस्ट read a generalized statement and then you form your own conclusions कि ये तो ऐसी सोसाइटी बनाने की बात कर रहा है, हम ये सपोर्ट नहीं कर सकते. So that is it. Otherwise I follow Kushal a lot. I watch his podcast and I also watch Sham Sharma show वाला podcast in which Kushal and Abhijit Iyer Mitra both come. So that is also something I find interesting. Secondly, Kushal ka sometimes I have noticed, maybe I am way off in my estimation, it is that his conversations are sometimes self-centric, जिसमें he talks about कि देखो I am one of those rare persons जो actual में पढ़ाई करता है, I am one of those person जो ऐसे करता है वैसे करता है. Please, there are lots of people who do lots of things. The whole idea of narcissism comes when you start to think you are special. I'm not saying he's narcissist, but I'm saying कि this kind of feels like it. Anyway, मुझे गालियाँ पड़ने वाली हैं, maybe we'll see. So with this I would like to come to the end of this video and thank you for being here till the very end, and I'll see you guys in the next one.